pivotal moment is unfolding in the AI revolution, a flashpoint that is pitting an industry against the federal government. And it's not just a business story. Frankly, it could impact the future of our species. Even if you don't know much about AI, you know that the biggest issue is something called alignment, making sure AI doesn't get so powerful and almighty that it poses a threat to humanity. Think Skynet from the Terminator movies. That's why the company Anthropic, maker of the chatbot Claude, specifically branded itself as safety first, imposing restrictions on how its partners could use its technology. Now those restrictions have put the company's $200 million contract with the Pentagon at risk, as the Pentagon is refusing to accept those restrictions that would prevent it from spying on Americans and from using AI to launch weapons on its own. Anthropic has refused to lift those restrictions. Anthropic's CEO, Dario Amodei, says he cannot, in good conscience, give in to the Pentagon's demands, given the potential dire consequences. Now, this has been met with fury from both the Pentagon and the president. This afternoon, President Trump posted to Truth Social, quote, "The left-wing nut jobs at Anthropic have made a disastrous mistake trying to strong-arm the Department of War and force them to obey their terms of service instead of our Constitution. Their selfishness is putting American lives at risk, our troops in danger, and our national security in jeopardy." Trump wrote he is banning Anthropic from all federal agencies effective immediately, though he then went on to say he's giving the government agencies 6 months to phase out Claude. Right now, Anthropic's Claude is the only AI chatbot with access to classified government programs. And Pete Hegseth just announced that he will designate Anthropic as a supply chain risk, a move designed to punish the company by barring many other companies from doing business with it. Now, the Pentagon has said it has no plans to spy on Americans or build fully autonomous weapons. Spying on Americans is against the law in any case, but it is demanding the ability to do so anyway, and now penalizing a company that dared to say no. At this moment, neither the government nor the company is backing down. Joining us now is New York University Professor Emeritus and AI expert Gary Marcus. He's the author of Rebooting AI, Building Artificial Intelligence We Can Trust. Also joining us is Associate Director of Analysis and a fellow at Georgetown's Center for Security and Emerging Technology, Owen Daniels. Great to have both of you here. So, Gary, you wrote something pretty dire. You wrote, "Anthropic's showdown with the U.S. Department of War may literally be life or death for all of us." That sounds very extreme. Why do you believe that?
I usually try to write things that are not extreme, but we are talking about possibilities that could lead to accidental nuclear war. I don't think we're talking about deliberate nuclear war, but the reality is that AI right now is not magic. And the White House and people at the top of the Pentagon seem to treat it as magic. Whereas those who are actually building it realize that it hallucinates, it makes mistakes, stupid errors of reasoning. And if you put that into production, into practice in military, particularly in autonomous weapons kind of situations, then you can have accidents. And you really don't want to have a hallucinating large language model making a decision about launching a weapon. And it doesn't have to be a nuclear weapon, but there's reporting from the Washington Post today that suggests that this whole kerfluffle started over nuclear weapons. They're considering doing that. But even if it's something less, you could get an accidental war, right? If you have a hallucinating system launch an attack on somebody else, they're going to retaliate. You're going to have escalation. This is very serious stuff.
Owen, the Pentagon has said it has no interest in using Claude to spy on Americans or launch autonomous weapons. But if that's the case, why doesn't the Pentagon just agree to Anthropic's guidelines?
Yeah, I think it's a really challenging position for the Pentagon in terms of the optics of appearing that a contractor is dictating terms to the government, right? I think there's a real risk from the Pentagon's perspective that Anthropic's way of going about this issue could set a precedent that other contractors follow in the future in a way that's really undesirable, particularly in the event of a potential conflict, right? I think part of the issue here, though, is that even though there are policies within the DoD that restrict the use of fully autonomous weapon systems and try to ensure that there will be appropriate levels of human judgment over the deployment of AI-enabled weapon systems, a lot of this really comes down to the way that AI affects human decision-making.
Yeah.
And Claude is, part of some important government systems that help operators make key decisions around military targeting. So I think a lot of this challenge is based on the kind of red lines that both the government and Anthropic are setting.
Well, and Anthropic's getting a lot of support. A lot of employees at both Google, a competitor, and OpenAI, another competitor, have signed petitions inside their own company saying we want to stand with Anthropic. Listen, Owen, ICE agents were using Palantir and Israeli AI to get facial recognition of protesters in Minnesota, many of whom were just protesting and not breaking the law. The DHS is currently being sued over this. So is it really outlandish to fear that the government and Palantir would take it a step further and spy on Americans, which is illegal?
I mean, it's a really important point that I think this episode has raised. There are obviously, as you mentioned, kind of legal restrictions on what the Pentagon can do with the technology here in the United States. But I think a lot of the value of this episode from a public perspective is bringing awareness about the dual use nature of this tech and the fact that applications that are used overseas could be adapted here on the home front. And that's something that we need to pay close attention to.
Yeah. Gary, I want to go back to something you were just saying, because when it comes to AI launching weapons, particularly nuclear weapons, King's College London just tested all the advanced AI models, and every single one of them was more willing to use a nuclear weapon in simulated war games than a human being would. The AI models ended up launching a nuclear weapon in 95% of the scenarios in which it was tested. And by the way, they weren't all hallucinating, as you were talking about as an example of something to worry about.
So the story was slightly misreported, but 95% of the time they were willing to issue nuclear threats in this study. They didn't always go taking the nuclear option, but it's a very clear indication, regardless of those details, that these systems don't necessarily do what we humans would think was appropriate. They sort of have a quick trigger finger, at least in terms of escalating the dynamics of the conversation, let's say. You mentioned in your opening about alignment. This is really the issue. We as humans have values that I think are important to try to keep the species alive. This is what mutual assured destruction has done for the last, several decades.
Yeah.
And it's not clear that we can trust these systems to follow our instructions. There are lots of examples of this that are more mundane, like you tell the systems don't hallucinate. People actually put that in their so-called system prompt, and the systems will hallucinate anyway. We don't have good control of these systems. You could imagine systems that were more tightly under human control, that were more aligned, and we might not be having these arguments. But the people building them know that we have these problems, and that's why they're setting red lines and why we should listen to them.
Yeah. Well, right now, the president is not listening. We shall see what happens in this big face-off right now happening between Anthropic and the government of the United States of America. Gary, Marcus, Owen Daniels, thank you both so much.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.